So actually I have put forward all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and ask you to go into the link so that you not only get to know the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but also the 169 targets that are associated with the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the thing is that the Sustainable Development Goals are very holistic, cross-disciplinary, and multi-stakeholder in participation. But the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned from a developing country's perspective, is that the SDGs boldly proclaim the end of global poverty by 2030. I would like to say that, as has been mentioned before, that the SDGs were the consensus outcome of maybe 3 years of consultation involving about 7 to 8 million people since Rio + 20. So again, I would like to draw your attention to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's synthesis report at the end of last year that summarizes how the consultation process and involving some negotiation between member states have gone on. If you go into his report and the link, you get a lot of references and to say that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are the best outcome. It is not to everybody's satisfaction, but it is the best outcome. So the SETGEN synthesis report repeatedly emphasized technology, and he referred particularly to the 15 years of SDG with the reduction of poverty. But that, I think, as Jeff Sachs mentioned, was basically due to China, but also in healthcare, about the 3 pandemic diseases, the death rate has been greatly reduced. So I want to actually now refer back to the Millennium Development Goal, which were 8 in number, and actually is going to end at the end of this year. To me, the Millennium Development Goals are actually very unambitious and silo-like and also government-centric. And actually, the SDGs were promoted by the G7. And the G7 told the developing country at the turn of the millennium that, look, we have only got so much of aid to you, and you don't be too ambitious. So actually, the MDG only offer half of reduction of poverty, half of the population, the reduction in disease and in hunger and so on. And to me, the biggest problem with the MDG is that they do not provide solution for the urgent problem of the developing world, namely poverty eradication through gainful wealth and employment creation. Now, from the MDGs to the SDG, what is the change? The change actually, to me, was the what you call the rise of the South, as Jeff had pointed out, Jeff said pointed out, especially in East Asia, that the alternate development strategy and success of China, the Asian tigers of Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and then some ASEAN countries like Malaysia and Thailand. In the SDGs, technology has been mentioned and again for achieving the SDGs. So the SDG that is mostly related to infrastructure-based development of the developing world is actually SDG number 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. This actually propelled by China, which is building mega infrastructure throughout the world at very high speed and committing some now US $700 billion to such projects. I think this alternate strategy of infrastructure-based development will dominate the next 15 years of the Sustainable Development Goals. And actually, I believe that infrastructure, industrialization, manufacture, and South-South cooperation through the BRICS and also institutions like the BRICS Development Bank, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and regional economic community like ASEAN, East Africa, South Africa, and also West Africa, and also Mercosur in Latin America. They will be the principal engine for South countries and also the world to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Coming to the theme of this workshop, Children and Sustainable Development, a Challenge in Education. I scanned through the SDG and the 169 targets. You know that there's no mention of children in all the 17 SDGs. Of the 169 targets, only children is only explicitly mentioned 11 times. I actually listed out for you this. But for science itself, actually it's worse. Science itself is only mentioned 3 times in all the targets. So it begs the question whether the challenge for education should really be directed to educating all the adults of the world. So also the challenge of education about science should actually, to me, be directed to the adults of the world, about the importance of children and science in sustainability. For an advocate of evidence-based education, I wish there is specific mention in any of the SDG targets of the following statement in the UN Secretary General's synthesis report. I quote, Ban Ki-moon says that a transformation and universal post-2015 agenda is called for, buttressed by science and evidence. Buttressed by science and evidence. I think if that has been included in any of the targets of the SDG, it would have been further vindication at the highest global political arena of IPSI, that IPSI advocates throughout the world have been tirelessly promoting for 3 decades. But all is not lost. I think that the following SDG number 4 target, I think it's target 4.7 that Jeff Sachs actually showed in his presentation. It actually summarized what we are trying to achieve here in this workshop. And I feel that, it covers everything, including culture of peace, non-violence, cultural diversity, cultural contribution to sustainable development. So I think this also indirectly refers to ethics and to justice. Now, as we say, the SDG set the prime target of ending global poverty. And then the premise is that with economic uplift through employment and wealth creation, world peace and sustainability will be nearer to achievement by 2030. The SDGs are all about achieving materialistic success in this world. I used to subscribe to the above premise, but now I've been profoundly disturbed by the fact of a middle-income, highly educated teenager from Europe, America, from Australia, New Zealand, and Malaysia, Indonesia, going to Syria to join ISIL as jihadists. And what is even worse, they are prepared to sacrifice their life as suicide bombers. And then also, there were development, as I mentioned this morning, about child soldiers in Africa, which is to me most unnatural. I think, on the other hand, I think the developed world continue to develop high-tech weapons like the drone that kills, their intended target and sometimes miss the target and kill children and women instead, which the US call collateral damage. And also the West turns its back on democracy by funding street demonstrations or military force that overturn democratically elected government in South countries. It used NATO to bypass the UN Security Council. Europe, I think, is reaping the refugee whirlwind of their Arab Spring, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Libya ventures. Of course, the West is in fear that many jihadists will return home from Syria to perpetuate their terrorism in the West. So I think the prime challenge in education of children to me in the developing world is not about educating them in SDG or sustainable development, because most of our countries were colonies of the West, and with national boundaries drawn in Europe across ethnic, tribal, language, and religious divide. Civil wars still erupt frequently, many fueled by external interests, especially in neighboring countries, in defense of their ethnic brothers and sisters. To me, the prime challenge of education of children, and adults for that matter, is to inculcate national unity and national pride by fusing the diverse cultures into an harmonious whole. Without national harmony and social stability, there cannot be any economic development, let alone sustainable development. It has been proved that IPSI actually improved science literacy, numeral literacy, and language literacy of students, as Professor Lina and Professor Kiri frequently remark. IPSI enables students to question and doubt every proposition of the so-called prophet, unless his proposition is supported by experiment and borne out by evidence. In fact, IPSI trains good citizens. But in the face of prophets of excessive military expenditure, of religious fundamentalism leading to terrorism, of profligate consumption as the model of economic development, I still believe that the only effective defense is a discerning and rational national, regional, and global citizenry nurtured by evidence education the scientific way. So, I'm also convinced merely being rational, discerning, and scientific is not sufficient to solve the terrible, irrational ills of the world, especially the developing world. IPSI must add moral and spiritual underpinning to the education of children. In Asia, our development success has been underpinned by the virtues inherent in our civilization. I quote, hard work, frugality, investment in education, and care for the extended family. I look forward to this workshop to add relevant elements for spirituality to the above earthly virtues. Malaysia, in my country, believes in prospering our neighbors and has many initiatives and programs for helping less developed countries and small island development states. My organization, ISTIC, is just one such example. I refer you to our website for more detail. As Malaysia is on the brink of becoming a high-income developed country, we are afflicted by the ills of the rich, like child obesity and the rights of the individual. Malaysia is now embarking on a new education paradigm of putting soul into the education of children and youth. My current campaign with respect to the SDGs actually is SDG number 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The SDGs are meant to eradicate global poverty by 2030. The global poor are the women and children of the world, and children are cared for by women. After centuries of discrimination, it is hard to imagine that gender equality can be achieved by the SDG deadline of 2030, merely 15 years away. I'm proposing to the UN that gender equality must be made the overarching agenda of all the SDGs. The gender equality action plans of all SDGs are to be monitored through big data collation and analysis, so that the strengths and weaknesses can be expeditiously highlighted to facilitate the achievement of MDG number 5. That is, I repeat, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. If we can achieve SDG number 5, all other SDGs will be achieved by 2030. Thank you very much.